those of you who have an idea, those of you who participated in the meeting that Wild Ones had, I think a couple of weeks ago, will witness and confirm with me, Uguti, we had such a similar conversation, right? And we are also still learning. I mean, this is the first time that we're having the PR Council. I'm just saying it for the purposes of, without the intentions of undermining anyone, right? And I think it's a very important conversation that we should have so that we are all aware of the big roles that we have to play as councillors. So the presentation is really going to focus on us understanding the roles of councillors. I know that it's a conversation that we have had for the longest of times, and nothing really has changed. So some of the maybe roles that I might talk about, they are not really, I'm not saying that they top the priority list, or there are other roles that are maybe less significant than others. Maybe we can look at how maybe the most immediate roles that we have to play as councillors, and there are all the other roles that come. We can attest to good amanyama roles ama councillors. They really come naturally. There is no way where it's written that a councillor has to maybe go and do conflict resolution in the wards and sort. But we find ourselves there because naturally as leaders, there are some of the challenges that we might have to be faced with, that we might have to solve in our constituencies. I was hoping that we could flight a presentation, but it's okay. I can try and talk, and maybe we can also have a conversation. So to introduce the presentation around the role of councillors, specifically looking at the women's quota, we defined as women councillors act as a bridge between the community really and the council, and their presence in the council chambers is a powerful symbol of women's empowerment and participation in shaping their communities. The inclusion of women councillors, as mandated by the Women's Quota, plays a vital role in strengthening service delivery within the communities. Right. So having said that, sorry, I just need to fix something here. Having said that, maybe to kickstart the conversation, what do we think are the roles of councillors, or us as councillors, what are our roles? The cameraman is fixing me to one position, but I'm a very fidgety person, so I feel very uncomfortable. What are our roles as councillors? Yes, please. Kalazani, is that a hand?
It's my hand.
Oh, yes.
Councillor.
Okay, councillor.
Our roles as a councillor were policy makers.
So does that mean that... Okay. So does that mean that I'm sorry, I'm going to be offending people. Does that mean that the role of an elected councillor in policy making is also the role of a PR councillor?
Yes.
Is there any objection? Okay. Any other roles? Yes.
It's the oversight role.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so maybe we might as well just continue. So like we stated, Uguti, we have got policy making, oversight, and so forth. So from here, from what we had, yes?
I wanted to say representation.
Okay.
They represent our communities to the council. Also act as some mediators. Yes, you give feedback from what's happening to the community issues and everything to the council. Then we also take back all the implementations from the council, reviewing and formulating policies.
Okay.
Yes.
So does then that follow that the same role of representation as an elected councillor is also the same role that a councillor who was nominated under or elected under the PR are the same?
Yeah, but there are some challenges, as I alluded to, the issues of representation and issues of feedback. Yeah, I think it becomes a bit difficult for these councillors who were elected under a proportional representative to call feedback meeting. Yeah, in their respective wards or in any part of the city. It's like they are not mandated to call feedback meetings. I'm not sure whether I can say mandated or the community, due to lack of awareness, cannot accept that they call feedback meetings.
I'd like to hear from a PR in terms of representation. So far, how has it been in terms of playing that role? Or if we are to maybe provide feedback or have those community meetings, who is the community? Who are we working with? Yes, Zina.
I think for me it was a bit easy because soon after elections, the councillor-elect for my ward introduced me to his working team. So, and like the residence chairpersons. So it made it a bit easy, but it's not easy. You're able to do some programs with people, but we still have that, I'm trying to use a proper word that's not rude. You still have that like power struggle because the elected councillors sometimes feel that you are overriding them. But the fact that you are always on the ground and people look at you, we are elected to serve the people, not an individual. And my concept is I do not report to the elected council, I inform that so-and-so called me to a meeting out of courtesy, not that I have to, that's me. So I think that's where the problem is our elected councillors need to be educated on how to work with PR councillors. You get, no, it's the truth.
Sorry, Zina is protected by me.
Yes, because, no, it's the honest truth because you get scenario, I'm talking from experience on cases where I've done programs in my ward where the council will tell you, and because as blunt as I am, I'll say, no, bulawai. So I will work where I've got space to work. So that's why I'm saying that those relationships need to be, I don't know, not mended, but people need to be educated on how to work hand in glove that way. But then, like I'm saying, the easiest way to work is if you have an arrangement or an agreement with your elect councillor, then things flow smoothly.
One hand before I proceed. Yes.
Okay, maybe we might differ as elected councillors. Like when we asked about are they PR or what, I simply told you that we're all councillors. We're elected through different systems, but we're all councillors. So that attitude maybe might be affecting some of the councillors, but I don't think it's the issue of attitude. It's the issue of my system and the lack of awareness. The PR councillors themselves, when there was that question, they insisted saying that they are PR councillors. Yeah, that means even to them direct, they still need capacity building so to understand how do they operate. So if they don't understand to that extent, what about the person who is at ground root? Yeah, that person is more confused. And also on feedback meetings, I was referring to such instances with, like now, there is a survey by Zimstat in my ward. They have already told me we are going to conduct a survey. They are telling the elected council. there is a budget consultation meeting or budget review meeting. The council, they will tell me, we are having such a meeting in your ward. And I'm going to relate that to my colleague, the other councillor who is in the ward, who was elected under a proportional representation. But I have been already mandated by the council, which we are coming for such a program to a ward. Can you kindly organize? That is what I was referring to when I was talking about representation and feedbacks.
All right, thank you for that. So we are all agreeing with the Roles a councillor. A second, yes.
I want to maybe respond to my councillor, Councillor Moyo. Maybe she takes it wrongly. I would have loved if a few councillors that I've invited in my ward, how they felt and how they presented themselves, because they are councillors. I enjoyed my meeting yesterday. I had a report back, and it was being addressed by the councillors that think we are neglecting them. I would have loved if they had commented how we are supposed to work, because in the ward they really accepted them. The issue is, when we wanted to introduce them when we were elected, maybe they were not free or they were not ready for it. But in some of our wards, people know it's not a challenge. So maybe it's because some of them were not ready to work with the communities, because they are elected for the communities, any communities. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. I think we will continue the conversation when we start facilitating. We'll just give the presentation that I have. So I think one of the most important things that we have to note, we are going to continue the conversation. That's fine. Thank you. That we see. So it's important for us to understand the significance of why we have what we would call PR councillors within council. We can all agree, Uguti, it's so hard for a woman to find themselves at a position of leadership. A woman has to work twice as much for things that men at some point in time can be freely given, just by virtue of being a man. And sometimes, you know, I think sometimes we really don't see the significance of, you know, the patriarchal privilege. And when it comes to women in leadership. So I think for us, it's one of the most, whilst we are still learning, whilst we are still taking the process of learning, I think for us as women as well, as people with interest to the participation of women, people with interest in terms of ensuring that women's lives improve to the better, for us it's a win. Although we are still trying to navigate, Uguti, how do we then make sure, Uguti, this opportunity that we have, because having PR councillors, for me, I see it as an opportunity. I don't know how we maybe out there view it. Maybe for us, because we are still not yet clear, it looks a little bit difficult. But for some of us, it really is an opportunity for us to strengthen the voices of women, leadership, and local governance. So I think the most important roles that we need to understand in terms of having PR council is how it plays a significant role in terms of addressing issues around gender biases. Like I said initially, Uguti, a woman, especially within the political space, has to work twice as much, because when you see a woman aspiring to be a leader or being a leader, the first question that people ask is, what are her credentials? Is she capable? You know, questions that we have really never asked when it's a man in leadership. He just has to have a nice car and that's it. He gets a free pass, right? But when it's a woman, we now want to ask, you know, did she even go to university? Is she married? How can we be led by a woman who is not married? A lot of questions, a lot of expectations are put umuntu ongumama aze abe ngumkhokheli before we even question a lot of things when it comes to our counterparts, which is really quite weird, because women are well able to lead households. That's where leadership starts. That's where leadership begins. The fact that you can be there, I constantly say women work magic, because even with $1, a family can eat. So what more of leadership do you want? What else do you want women to demonstrate that they are well-able leaders? So now that we have women in PR Council, it means that we are able to walk towards breaking the gender stereotypes. It's not a walk in the park. It's not something that we are going to wake up today. We've got PR Council, we've got more women in council, and then everything is okay. We still need to navigate the terrain, right? Also, the other thing that makes it important for us to have the PR councillors is that I believe that it will work towards improved responsiveness and service delivery. If we go back to our communities, ngubani oyazi schedule yamanzi endlini or in the area? Ngumama. Mbani oyazi schedule ye load shedding? Really? Okay, maybe because of the UEFA and the EPL and Wi-Fi, auntie. But all of those things, really, most of the things concerning service delivery concern abantu abangomama. I know sometimes we want to even look at high-level priorities like health and so forth and so forth. Even issues that we overlook like street lighting. Imagine ukuthi ngubani who's more vulnerable to being abused or being mugged, living in an area engelama street lights. It's women and girls, auntie. So this makes it important ukuthi city, if we have more women in council, we could get to a point where there's improved responsiveness and service delivered. I've always said that one thing that makes women unique is that we lead using our maternal instincts. We lead from experiences, right? We know how hard it is to wake up in the morning, to have to go and look for water, to prepare for the family, and at some point in time we still have to go to work and so forth and so forth. So when we get the opportunity then to say, we are now advocating for improved service delivery, we are talking from experience. It's not about, labana bati abalamans, or they are having challenges. It's challenges that sometimes we have to live with in our day-to-day lives, right? Also, one thing that also makes it important is having women really in council. We are hoping that it will take us to a place where we also have effective oversight. Like I have said before, we want to get improved responsiveness and service delivery. We want to be able to address gender biases. So if we have more women in council, it means that we stand a better chance of making that change that improves the lives of women, young people, and children. So now going back to the roles of councillors, we have discussed, I think, most of them that I have in my presentation: representation, service delivery, policy making, providing oversight, and community engagement. So this is not a manual really, but it's also to open our minds and also explore what we can do or what we cannot do within our confines. But I'll tell you this, I feel like we all have a lot of work to do, but for some of us with interest in terms of the well-being of women and girls, we have so much expectations, especially for the PR councillors, because we are also expecting you to extend your role from all the roles that you are playing to also ensuring that issues concerning women, children, and youth are actually addressed within the council. So when it comes to the issue of representation, a councillor overall, we agreed ukuthi they play a role in ensuring that they represent their communities, right? So councillors represent the interests and the concerns of their constituents at local authority level. They act as the voice of the community, conveying their needs, their opinions and aspirations to the local authority. So with our expectations now that we have the women's quota in council is that women will also stand in the gap to ensure that the much that we are representing everyone's needs, the much that we are representing the community's needs, there is still a very critical constituent within that constituency, that is women, young people and children. So there is an expectation for women councillors to ensure that the specific needs and priorities of women are heard and addressed in local government decisions. And now we're talking about issues of who do we then feed back to? Who do we then identify as when we want to gather the concerns of our communities to take to council? We can already identify another very critical constituent to say with the much that we are serving within the wards. We also have this role to ensure that we at least push as well for the issues, for addressing the issues of women and girls. We talked about the issue around policy making and how it's also important, it's an important role that councillors overall play. So for councillors, in terms of policy making, there's an expectation that councillors participate in the decision-making process within the local authority, and they contribute to the development and implementation of policies, strategies, and plans that affect the local community, and that is in general. And then the expectation comes again in terms of the women's quota to say, to contribute to developing processes that address gender inequalities and advocate for budgets that allocate resources to resources equitably to meet the needs of all community members. Now we're talking about ensuring that there is gender responsive budgeting within council, there is gender responsive or gender sensitive policies. We also have to ensure that there is gender responsive service delivery within the council that caters for the needs of very intersectional constituents amongst women in all their diversity, young people, women with disabilities, and children as well. So we want to ensure there is gender responsive policies that will lead to improved service delivery and a more just and equitable society. This thing is making me slow. And then issues around, let me just use my phone. Then there's an issue around oversight and accountability. Overall, councillors play a role in ensuring that the local authority operates in a transparent and accountable manner. They monitor the activities of the local authority, including the budget, allocations, the expenditure, and issues around service delivery. So the expectations really from the PR councillors is that they should play a role in terms of monitoring service delivery to identify gaps and advocate for improvement, particularly in the areas critical to women, like health, water and sanitation, education, and you name it. All the issues around service delivery, and to see how do they look at the specific needs, how do they meet the specific needs of women, girls, children, and young people within the community. Further, the councillors play a role in terms of ensuring that they engage the community, right? That is community engagement. So then there is an expectation, in as much as there is a lot of work that we expect in terms of community engagement, because we're expecting when our councillors go to the chambers, they are representing us, they are representing our needs, they are representing the voices of the communities. So there's an expectation, therefore, for the PR councillors to ensure that they also engage, especially those constituents that I've talked about in terms of women and girls and youth, and also ensure that there is that platform for feedback from the community, from the constituents, back to the council, and so forth and so forth. So basically, councillors in local authorities, they do have a multifaceted role, and they represent the community in ensuring that they contribute to policy making, they contribute to ensuring that there's improved service delivery. But however, there's also an important aspect in ensuring that the roles of councillors are not just roles because they are defined in a certain manual. They have to be we have to ensure that we are effective as leaders, as councillors. We have to ensure that we are transparent. We have to ensure that we are accountable both to the council and to our constituents. one of the most important, I think maybe I'll just mention like 3 or 4 key things that are important in ensuring that we as leaders, as councillors, as women councillors, are effective, accountable, and transparent. So the first issue is, if we are effective leaders, then we contribute to strengthening democracy. How do we do so? By ensuring that the voices of the most marginalized groups are also heard, by also being able to encourage the participation, especially in civic discourse amongst women and girls. Like we said, Uguti, there's a lot of issues around patriarchy when it comes to women's participation in leadership and governance. But at the same time, when you want to look at it in terms of the multi-layered challenges that are there in our communities and how they wear the face of a woman. So it's important for us as councillors overall, and also us as councillors within the women's quota, to ensure ukuthi ama voices abo mama, ama voices abantwana, ama voices abo mama with disabilities, and all the other intersectionalities are actually heard in council. We also need to ensure ukuthi konkona, through being accountable and effective councillors, we enhance community participation. That means ukuthi we are representing a people, we are representing a constituent. So we need to ensure ukuthi they have that ownership of whatever projects that are going on in their community, of issues around service delivery. They should be the ones who are able to determine what is it that they need in their community for them to be able to thrive. Also, like I said, I will keep on overemphasizing the role of councillors in ensuring that we improve service delivery and responsiveness. And one of the things that makes it important for us as women to participate as councillors is because we know our communities better. When it comes to issues, I've always, because I've got a background around health, I've always been baffled by the fact that when we look at maybe community health workers or community health volunteers, you can hardly find a man. Mostly it's women. When it comes to issues around the resident associations and so forth, you'll find women and maybe just one man up there, up the ladder just to decorate the things. But who is running around? Who is doing the actual work in the community? It's women, right? So it's easy for a woman to be able to point out the issues that they need to be improved, that they need to be solved within the communities. That is why it's important for us as women in council to ensure that we amplify the voices of fellow women. So as I close, I want us, of course, I constantly referenced PR in council, but not to undermine any role, but to see that we extend our roles. We have the overall roles as councillors, but we extend them. We go an extra mile to ensure that the needs of women and girls particularly are raised and they are made significant. So with that, I thank you.